2020, so that will make that 2023, if not more. So we will kick off. My name is Kelly Pepworth. I'm the MD of Speed Communications. We're one of the largest agencies in the Southwest and have offices across the country as well. I am also the chair of the PRCA in the Southwest. The session today, which was titled A to AD in 5 years, got a lot of interest, understandably so. And we have two brilliant panel members here. We have Alicia Squadrone, who's an account manager at Grayling. She joined the agency straight out of university 4.5 years ago, and her experience is really wide-ranging, mainly working across food and drink and retail sectors. And we also have Steph. Steph is an account director for Bristol-based agency ORCHID. She's been working in PR and communications for 5 years and servicing a real diverse mix of clients across both B2B and B2C. Alicia and Steph are also committee members on the PRCA, so help in terms of work that we do in the region, raising awareness of the industry, helping with looking at training and different workshops and events that we can get together as individuals and share best practice and learning. So the title of the event was A to AD in 5 years. We're really going to focus on Alicia and Steph's career journey, some advice and top tips they can give about things that have been advantageous for them in their career and help them progress, how they got their journeys off to a good start, and how they have progressed so quickly in their career. And hopefully this is beneficial to everyone listening. In terms of questions, I'm going to pose some as we kick off to get the conversation going. And as we move through, if you have any questions, if you could put them up on the Q&A, and then we will get to those in the second part of the session. So if you just want to post those as we're going through, or anything that you've thought of beforehand that you'd like Alicia and Steph to cover, then that would be great. So I thought what might be good is to kick off maybe with a quick summary from each of you about yourselves, you know, who you are, you know, why you came into the industry, why you chose PR in the first place, so everyone can get a bit of an understanding and a context of the journey that you've had. Alicia, do you want to start?
Yeah. So yeah, as you mentioned, I'm an account manager at Grayling in the Bristol office. So for those who don't know, Grayling is a global agency, and we've got 9 offices across UK. So I'm based here in Bristol, and I've been working in PR for 4.5 years since I came out of university, where I actually knew that's where I met Steph. We went to the same university, studying journalism and PR. And most of my experience at Grayling has been in consumer clients, specifically food and drink, retail. That's kind of what I'm really passionate about. Some of the clients I've worked on over the years have been M&S, Yo Sushi, the Ivy Collection, Nestle. So some really, really interesting brands. And in terms of why I chose PR, I actually went into university thinking I wanted to do journalism, as so many PR people. I think our stories are quite similar. I really, really love writing, so I thought journalism was kind of the right career for that. But then the more I kind of learned about PR at university, the more I kind of fell in love with it. And I did a few kind of internships throughout uni, and then just ended up kind of doing more PR modules than journalism modules. So that's kind of how I fell into it. And I think PR is just really, it's just really fascinating because it's all behind the scenes. So many people don't know what it is. Like my family doesn't know what I do. But it's so powerful, and it's absolutely everywhere, and all the news that we consume, and I mean, most of the stuff that we see on social media, and there's so much work that goes on behind the scenes. So that's really what kind of drew me to the industry.
Okay. And Steph, tell us a little bit about your journey so far, and why you chose PR as a career.
Yeah, of course. So, hi guys. Like Kelly said, I am an account director for ORCHID. We are a full service communications agency. We have an office in Jersey in the Channel Islands, and we've got an office in Bristol. I work in the Bristol agency. I've been in PR for 5 years this month. I started just before I graduated from uni, actually, in kind of a 1 day a week experience role, which was brilliant, with an agency just outside of Bath. And as is probably a common story, I also sort of fell into PR. I did an English and journalism degree. So I did a module of PR in my first year and found it really fascinating. We looked at how kind of everything that goes on in PR behind the scenes for a business is sort of the make or break, really. You know, you are really integral in a brand's reputation, what they put out there. And I just thought it was really brilliant. So I kind of throughout my degree knew the importance of doing work experience and making sure I had some real world experience before graduating. So I actually tweeted out kind of asking if anybody in the Southwest had any work experience roles or internship roles, and actually was kind of contacted by my first agency who were absolutely brilliant, and I loved working there, and I stayed with them for a couple of years. So did a few months, kind of 1 day a week, like I said, and then became like a permanent member of the team just after finishing my exams. So yeah, like most people, sort of fell into it, didn't plan to go into PR in any way, shape or form. I actually thought I was going to go and be an English teacher, so quite a different route after university.
So both of you mentioned internships, work experience. I'm sure there are a lot of people on this meeting that maybe did similar things in terms of building their experience before they went for interview. Do you think that really helped you stand out when in getting your first job? And I know, Steph, your journey was a little bit different because you were already doing internships and you know, evolved into the full-time role. But do you think that was really beneficial in making you stand out that interview process and getting that first position?
I think so, definitely. You know, for anything, it was just really important to put myself out there. PR is a very competitive sector. I think there are lots of brilliant people out there kind of aiming for roles within PR. So to make yourself stand out, you have to really put yourself out there and not be afraid of sort of, you know, saying, oh, I'd really like to learn, or I'd really like to join in, or whatever it is. So I think definitely. And then with the experience, you build up all of this knowledge. Even the kind of 1 day a week that I did for the first few months gave me such amazing insight, and the support and mentorship I got from the agency there was absolutely fantastic. And as I've progressed, it's always something that I've kind of pointed out, was the initiative that you will take to go and find a work experience or to find an internship is an important part of it. A lot of PR is what I call EQ rather than IQ. It's about that emotional kind of ability to put yourself out there and just showcase initiative. So yeah, I think it was really important in my journey, and still is.
Yeah. And yourself, Alicia?
Yeah, I agree with everything Steph said. I think it's internships and work experience are a very common way to get your foot into the industry, because as I mentioned before, there's a kind of lack of awareness of what PR and comms is. I think a lot of people just kind of lump it under marketing. So I think it's really nice, because I did, like, part of my degree was PR, but I still felt like I didn't really know what PR was until actually doing that practical experience. So I think it's really important if you can to do that. And there's some paid schemes, there's some kind of unpaid shorter schemes, but you know, people like essentially that like to hire people that are sort of tried and tested it in a way. If you know that you fit in with the culture and that you did a good job. That's how I got my job at Grayling. I did 2 weeks internship straight out of university, and then after a month they happened to have an opening for an account exec, so they kind of called us. You know, those are the first people that we'll kind of go to when hiring. We're like, oh, this person is great at work experience. So it's really your chance to make like a really good impression, and to just learn what you like and what you don't like, because I did some internships where I actually really didn't enjoy the work, and I was like, now I know I'm not into this type of PR, you know. So yeah, I think it's very, very important.
So both of you then came in as AEs in your roles. Talk about your first couple of years in terms of your journey. You know, what did you do in your role that you think really helped in terms of your career progression, or what steps did you take, or actions, or what were you doing that actually helped you to continue to progress and in terms of promotion and elevation?
I think for me, it was just getting involved in as much as I possibly could, whether that was reading, training, learning, you know, turning to kind of my manager at the time and saying, teach me everything that you know. I was very, very hungry to learn and very hungry to get involved, even at quite a junior level. And I think that can be quite scary, because you are kind of just out of uni, you don't have loads of experience. So putting yourself out there and saying, well, teach me everything you know and I'd like to get involved, can be daunting. But I think it was a really important step to take for that progression, because the more you learn, the more you can put into those sort of practical steps that really help your progression and kind of your understanding of the role that you do.
Yeah. Alicia?
Yeah, I agree with that. I think like showing curiosity and willingness to learn is really important. I think the skills you can learn on the job, but the attitude you have is extremely important from the get-go. And yeah, just you know, consuming as much news as you can, staying on top of social media trends, all of that will really help you kind of creatively in your creative process if you know what other brands are doing. So yeah, just staying on top of that, I think, is extremely important in our industry. I think also like finding your niche, like something you're really passionate about and that you become kind of known for across the agency. I think that really helped me in the first year or so. I've always been extremely passionate about D&I. I'm LGBT myself, and obviously it's a very kind of diverse industry. Sadly, it's very kind of white, heterosexual, you know, middle class, and so I kind of I took that passion that I had and I did something about it. So I got involved in like the D&I group at Grayling and carried forward various like projects and initiatives. So I think, yeah, if you've got like a niche or something you're particularly passionate about and you pursue that will definitely kind of help sort of raise your profile in the agency, I would say.
So how would you advise people to go about that? So if they have a passion outside of work or a passion just for themselves personally, how would you advise them to go about making people aware of that or highlighting that? Or because like you said, if you don't want to be put in a niche, but on the other hand, if there's something you're massively passionate about and therefore that will come across, what is the best way to go about that and making people aware of that?
I think it kind of depends on what the passion is. If it's like, you know, it's like mental health or like other areas of D&I, then obviously the you know, the obvious kind of way to go about that would be to get involved in the various kind of groups at your agency. If your agency that doesn't have a working group, then you could start one up and, you know, work closely with HR and your line manager and stuff to start a group for whatever you're passionate about. I would say to just like speaking to your line manager about what you're passionate about and you know, seeing if they can help you sort of pursue that. That's and I know that's someone I'm line managing is really kind of passionate about the environment, and so I've been trying to you know, get her more involved in like brainstorms that have to do with, you know, sustainability and all of that. So I think just we're working with your team to let your passion be known, and I think that would just make you look really good as well, and you'll be able to end up working on something that you're passionate about. So yeah, that's what I would say.
And what about the outside, you know, people bring their outside passions into work, and I wondered, you know, what is it that's good for you to keep abreast of or involved in or do outside of work that might benefit your career in work? Is that a good thing? Is it, you know, should you be going networking left, right, and centre? Should you be going to lots of events? Should you be doing, you know, should you be on calls like this? You know, what would your advice be about that? You know, should you just be doing stuff that's in work, or actually is it beneficial in your career to be involved in other things that you then can bring into your workplace?
I think it's always going to be beneficial if you have a passion or if you have something that you love doing that you know will support your career, then do as much of it as you can, whether in or outside of work. Even small things, you know, for example, most PRs are brilliant content writers and have fantastic kind of skills in that sense. So always reading about what you're interested in, whether you're in work, reading about it or outside of work, I think is always beneficial. Networking events are great. I think, you know, you have to be really careful of your kind of mental health when it comes to not overloading yourself with work stuff and having that kind of really good boundary between work and outside. But if you know that it's a passion point that you want to bring to work, definitely doing as much as you want to outside of work is always going to benefit your career and your career progression.
Yeah.
And I think networking as well is really important. So our university was quite good for that. They offered us the opportunity to go to like PRCA networking events. I don't know if you remember, Steph.
Yeah.
And so you could kind of meet practitioners in the industry already at that stage, get their business cards, add them on LinkedIn. And, you know, so sometimes it may lead to nothing, but you never know. So I think it's really good to start building that kind of LinkedIn network, and yeah, and just building that kind of early is really important.
Do you think when you first come into the industry, you generally find as people move along their careers, they end up potentially specializing? So they might say, actually, I really like consumer, or I really like food and drink clients, or I actually really like financial services, or whatever. Do you think it's good to start broad, to get an understanding of what you enjoy? Or actually, if you know from the off that you really, your focus is food and drink and that's what you love, it doesn't really matter? What would be your advice around that if you were coming in to get as much experience as possible across as many sectors? Or actually, it's, if you know what you want to focus in on, focus in?
I've always worked across a very broad range of clients, but that's because I know that I love doing that, because I like the diversity, I like the pace, I like that every day is very different. So I personally think it's about finding what you love, and if that means that it's a niche, then that's great. But when you start out, I would definitely advocate for trying lots of things before you sort of settle on one thing. It might not be a sector specific thing either. You might love working in all sectors, but you might find that you are really strong in PR and media relations, for example. So that would be what you would kind of hone in on, or social media might be your thing. So It doesn't necessarily just have to be the sector. It can be the area in which you work in PR, because PR is big. It's got lots of elements within it that you can hone in.
Yeah, I agree. I think trying as much as possible when you start is key, but it also kind of depends, because some jobs you'll just apply for like a PR, like consumer account exec and stuff. So you want to have the chance to dabble in both like consumer and corporate. I luckily had that chance at Grayling, and I think just trying out as much as possible is going to teach you what you like and what you don't like. And you might be surprised. Like you might, a lot of people come into PR thinking they really like fashion PR, for instance, because they're really passionate about fashion. But then the more they work in fashion PR, they actually realize, oh, maybe that's not for me. Maybe I just like shopping and I love clothes, but not actually working in that. So I think if you can just get as much experience as possible.
Yeah. I know that there are people on the call who are from agencies, but some in-house teams as well. And I know across the region we have some really substantial in-house teams who make a number of people in those teams. They're not just small teams necessarily. I'm wondering, with the advent of change of ways that we work over the last few years, particularly if you're new into the industry, do you think, and what advice would you give to people when you potentially aren't having as many physical touch points in your agency or your in-house team or with your organization as you maybe would have, historically? Do you have any guidance or thoughts about, how you get your personality known, you as an individual known, what you're good at, your skills, etc., in the world that we work in now, whereas a lot of this might be done on screen?
Yeah, good question. I think, with the changing world that we're in, and a lot more kind of working from home and working online, there will still always be times within team meetings, perhaps catch-ups, all that sort of admin side of stuff. Teams will still have those conversations. So I think bringing something to the table when you can in those meetings, having ideas, always kind of coming to these things prepared will be great. And if you could, like Alicia said, if you've got some fantastic ideas like setting up a group, or you've seen something that's going to really relate to a client that you're working on, just bring it to the table, and absolutely do not be afraid to have that conversation and to put yourself out there. I know I keep using the word put yourself out there, but I think that's the key. I think it is about not sort of sitting back and thinking, oh, well, I'm too junior to say this, or I'm not experienced enough, because that's not the case at all. The beauty of agency and in-house, especially when you're new, is that you're going to bring fantastic, fresh, new ideas to the table, which is really important in any PR firm, agency, in-house. So just turn up, show up, bring what you can. I think that's really going to stand you kind of in good stead. Yeah.
Alicia, do you have anything to
add? I couldn't have put it better myself. I think I think that's exactly right. Just putting yourself out there as much as possible, and yeah, just coming prepared, coming with ideas, because I mean, with junior members of staff, when they're really proactive and they're constantly flagging and stuff, that they will be noticed, even in like a kind of massive global agency. You know, if you come, if you're really proactive and you have great ideas, that, you know, it will get noticed. And I think also, like, it's a more kind of remote world, but I think just making that effort to like have some face-to-face meetings with people is really important. I mean, in my opinion, it makes like a massive difference to be kind of in person, in terms of building relationships. So I think if you can make time to go for coffee with your line managers or with your colleagues and stuff, even if it's not work related, I think that's also really important.
Yeah. I think there was something that we were discussing before, and in terms of things that would be good to cover off. And there's a lot of conversation at the moment around imposter syndrome and how people are feeling at the moment in terms of their resilience and their ability and being confident about what they do. What advice would you give to anyone that's, you know, that is doing brilliantly at their job actually and has all the skills that they need to progress, but potentially are suffering from imposter syndrome and feeling a little bit unstable about, you know, moving forward? What would your advice be there?
I honestly think that everyone struggles with imposter syndrome. I don't know if there's not the answer people want to hear, but it's not something you can fully overcome ever. I think I still get it now if I've got like a big page, or if I'm getting involved in something I've not done before. So I think it's almost like the kind of fear of the unknown of it. I think you just have to kind of accept it, accept that everyone is going through it, and everyone has it, and then that can give you some relief. I think I guarantee you that like every CEO out there, no matter how much experience you have, like you still get imposter syndrome in some instances. So I think just kind of use that to like fuel you a bit. Yeah, I don't know if you agree, Steph.
Yeah, definitely. Like Alicia says, I think it's imposter syndrome is something everybody gets, but also is perhaps not always a bad thing, in my opinion, because it can be sometimes the motivator you need to just sit up and be like, no, I am good at what I do and I have got all the skills, and it's just about believing in yourself and knowing that you've worked really hard to be where you are, and you're going to continue to work really hard to get to where you want to be. So imposter syndrome can be a bit of a motivator. It's not a very comfortable place sometimes, but it, you know, it can serve a purpose. But I think it's just remembering that you've worked really, really hard and you are where you are, and other people are obviously giving you the evidence you need to showcase that you work hard. You know, you've got into a company, you've had some progression. You know, if you're feeling, and you know, I do this, if you are feeling kind of a little bit isolated within yourself, go and talk to somebody, go and talk to a line manager, go and talk to a boss who I'm sure will give you the reassurance you need that you've done a brilliant job. So don't keep imposter syndrome to yourself either, because talking about it can make it a lot easier.
Absolutely. That talking to someone point, do you guys advocate or think it's a good thing, and has it helped you at all, either having a coach or a mentor or someone within your organization that you can talk things through with that can help? So I don't know, have either of you had that experience? Has that been beneficial? Is that something you would support as being a good thing to have?
I haven't actually had a proper mentor, but I've had a line manager for years, and he's my director, and I mean he's just amazing to talk to and listen to. So I guess in a way it is almost like a mentorship. And I think, yeah, it's been incredibly important. I feel like I could just talk about any concern that I have, and it will be listened to. And I think I'm very lucky in that aspect. I hope that everyone kind of has that experience as well. But I haven't had like a proper mentor, like someone from another agency or someone just from the industry. I think that would be good. That's something that I would want, to be honest. I think it would be really useful.
Yeah, definitely. I'm in the same boat. Never had a mentor per se, but have always had somebody more senior to me that I can lean on and rely on and ask all the questions kind of to. And I think that's super important, because even when you get to CEO level, I'm sure you'll continue to have questions. And so having somebody that you can turn to without concern of turning to them and just saying, can you help me, or I don't quite get this, is so important for your own progression as well. Because if you don't understand something, you can't overcome that. So yeah, super important.
Yeah, brilliant. Final from us, and then I see there's 3 questions to cover. If you could give any one piece of advice or tip about progressing quickly, how to stand out, how to accelerate your career, what advice would you give? Read, Steph.
Mine, I've written mine down. Mine is to fully and wholly love what you do. I think there's lots of concern that you have to stick with something for a long time because that's what's going to help you progress, but actually you need to find what you love and you need to be within what you love to really excel in something, because it's going to become I always say it's going to drain you rather than be a radiator. You're not going to radiate this kind of real passion and motivation for something if you don't love it. So find something you love and really stick at it, and just people will notice how much you love it, and kind of having those passion points, and it will really support your progression.
Yeah, that's a really good one. That's really good. Alicia?
I'm like torn between 2. I think one of them is sort of around the curiosity thing that we spoke about quite a few times. So, always being like showing that curiosity in terms of news, reading as much as possible, asking questions. I think that's really important career-wise. But I think my main one is probably just to just always be yourself and never try to hide what makes you kind of unique or different. I know it sounds cheesy, but I think people will naturally kind of respect you for that. And I guarantee you get further in your career if you're bringing something different to the table, like any sort of form of diversity. So I think, just don't be afraid to be who you are, essentially, and just stay true to yourself. If there's something that you feel like you can't work on because of moral issues, then I think speak up about that.
Yeah, brilliant. They were great. I can see there's some questions. So one of them is, are there any specific tips for creating a career in this region, so the Southwest? Anything you would suggest, if you're looking to stay here, grow your career here, based on your knowledge of the region, what tips you would give?
Get involved with as much stuff as you could, or you can, in the Southwest. The Southwest is a very big region, but if you're in Bristol, for example, there's so many networking events, especially through the PRCA, that you can kind of join. We'll always do summer parties, winter parties, for example. Just get involved as much as you can and kind of make those connections. I think that's going to really support your career.
Yeah, I agree, and also through work experience. I mean, it kind of depends what stage you're kind of at in your career, but I think if you haven't started yet, then do that work experience to to kind of trial various agencies and stuff in the Southwest, and it's also a great way to network. But I think like Steph says, just try and get involved in as much as possible, and the PRCA can help with that.
Yeah, brilliant. There's a question which is, what advice would you give to someone who hasn't been an account manager but has experience undertaking PR campaigns in-house on moving into an agency MD role? Kudos, first of all, for going account manager to MD. Maybe we should do that session next. How to get to account manager to MD. That's brilliant. What are the key skills at MD level? I can, from my perspective, being an MD, so I'm an MD of an agency that's got about 45 people in it, and is growing. I think the MD role is actually about the health and happiness of your team. The focus should be on how do you create a healthy agency, and an agency that supports your team to be the best they can be. And that's a slightly different role than necessarily an absolute focus on clients, although clients are important, but your role as an MD is safeguarding your team. And part of that safeguarding is making sure that you have a healthy agency, and that means financially, commercially, and also in terms of its future. So the role of an MD is also about having a skill at looking at where the growth opportunities are, what is the future of the agency, how do we safeguard it and make sure that it's healthy, not just today or tomorrow, but in a year's time, 2 years' time, 3 years' time. And I think that's the slight difference between, I've always had client-facing roles and still do client-facing work and work with a team, but my responsibility is around the team and the people within the agency, and that's what an MD's role, I think, should be. I don't know if you guys have anything to add to that based on your MDs.
I mean, I agree with what you said. Like, I think making sure your team is important, and that they want to stay and they want to be there is the most important thing. Because then you won't get a high turnover and you're able to sort of nurture people from the start. But yeah, I mean, it's a no to say really about being an MD.
Yeah, I think the other thing is the purpose of your agency, and I think, Alicia, you touched on a little bit of this, is, what does your agency stand for? What is its brand? What is its purpose and values?
Yeah, values.
Making sure that that is reflective of the purpose and the values of your team, that, you're not at odds with what people believe in. That's also really important, that there's some clarity around that, and they're really clear about who you are, what type of agency you are, what type of in-house team, what type of comms team, and what is your culture. And safeguarding that culture is also really, really important. There was another question. What advice do you have on moving sectors in PR, and how important is knowledge of PR services, e.g. monitoring? And I think we were also going to talk about, channels are changing all the time, new platforms are emerging, new ways of working from an activation perspective. So I think there's two things there. What's the advice about moving sectors? And we did talk about that a little bit, but what, how do you do that? And, is that a good thing to do? But also, how important is it keeping your knowledge levels up and keeping up to speed?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
I think if I take the sort of knowledge of PR services and monitoring, I think it's going back to the reading and consistent learning. I think doing as much as you can to feed that curiosity, kind of like Alicia says. And I think as well, the other thing to note is you're only one person. Don't expect to be able to absorb every single bit of information there is out there. I think talking to other people, whether it's in your agency or kind of within your team or outside of your team as well, about kind of what they're using and what they think and how they're managing kind of the day-to-day changes. And well, at this rate, it's day-to-day changes kind of in the PR world, because I think it's important to look outside of your workplace as well, because you never know, kind of there might be the next big thing that you're not quite sure of yet or haven't quite come across, and that's going to be kind of the biggest change that you'll have that year. So I think always being involved outside of your workplace is really important, through networking and through kind of just talking to other people.
Yeah. And I think, there are lots of different things that you can, PRCA is one organisation. Obviously, we've got the CIPR. There's also lots of business events, lots of different sector type events, lots of different just young professionals events as well that are happening across the region, or also just creative events. Bristol is brilliant in terms of, creative and different organisations that are involved in the creative industry in this region that people can get involved in. So I think we're very lucky as a region, that because I know there are people on the call outside of Bristol as well. We're very lucky as a region that that creative industry is so strong across the board. I have no more questions, and there are no more questions on the chat. If anyone quickly wants to put one on, we've got time. Just see if there's any others that want to come in. But yeah, we hope you guys have found this useful. We covered most bases. I think there's some really interesting things there about how to progress your career, things that you could be involved in. I think the conversation around imposter syndrome, really interesting as well, and having confidence in yourself. Might be interesting for us to explore a little bit more at the PRCA mentoring outside of your organisation, so whether that's something we might be able to facilitate in some way, because I think that would be really beneficial for people on their career journeys, and we will look into that. I think before we sign off, I just want to say thank you to Alicia and Steph. That's been really interesting. If you have any questions post this event, please do send them in. I think you can post them on the link afterwards, and we will obviously respond to them, either one-to-one or collectively. The other thing is an ask from me, actually, as the chair of the PRCA. We are looking to build our committee and want to get more people involved. We want to run more events, get more content out there, get more useful information out there, set up more schemes and initiatives in the region, and we need resources to do that because we all volunteer. If you would be interested in joining the committee alongside myself, Alicia and Steph, we'd love to have you. We are looking for someone particularly to help us around our social media channels and working with us on what content we can put on social media, but also a content focus person as well. So if you'd be interested, do drop me a line. We'll share my details with everyone that attended. So do come forward. We'd love to meet you, have a chat with you. There's some great stuff that we want to do in the region for the industry as a whole, but for everyone working within it. So we'd love to have you on board. And that would be great. But I see there was a note that someone said mentoring scheme would be amazing. So we will see what we can do, and we'll have some chats with the PRCA and see what we could set up potentially. Thank you for everyone that attended, and thank you again, Alicia and Steph. That's been brilliant. I hope you all have found it useful, and we've got lots more different sessions coming up over the next few months, so we'll let you know about them as soon as they're planned in. And have a good rest of your day.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, everybody.
Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.